Hello there, I'm the student, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can increase your crown power and decrease your nobility's power in the beginning of EU5. Because if you start the game of EU5 tomorrow when it comes out, or later of course, as a complete beginner with literally almost every nation in the game, there will be a problem with your crown power being pretty low, whereas your nobilities, or for republics your burghers, power being super high. This is actually a pretty bad thing that needs to be fixed immediately, like as soon as possible, because otherwise you can't really scale your economy, you can't really scale your country. And that's why I wanted to show you the opening strategy of how to fix your crown land versus your nobility's power. And if this video gets you hyped for EU5 yourself and you want to get the pre-order bonus before the game and start playing the game from day one, then feel free to buy the game by using the link in the first pinned comment, which gets you directly to the official Paradox Interactive website, where you can pre-order the base game or pre-order the base game and the next 4 upcoming DLCs. And if you do that, then it would be really nice if you would then just use a promo code. It doesn't have to be mine, but if you just add any promo code of any content creator, that really helps out a lot, and it really helps out every content creator to keep on making content on EU5. So if you want to buy EU5 and want to support one of your creators, then this could definitely be the way to do it. But anyways, let's just continue with the video. So first of all, you see that, the crown power actually gives quite some bad negative effects if you are below 25%. You can see that over there. If the estate power of the crown is below 25%, then it gives you like scaled modifiers, scaled negative modifiers. So you can see I'm basically at 15%, so 10% below the needed 25%, and that gives me 10% reduced tax efficiency, 10% reduced efficiency of my cabinet, especially tax efficiency. And then on top of that, it also gives you additional 5% change policy costs, less diplomatic reputation, very low trade income. So the exact same amount of power that you have, you will gain from trade. So that means that every trade that flows in or out of our country, I'm only getting 15% of that only. And like the other 85% are going to the estates, which is really bad for our own economy and also for the power of the other estates, right? On top of that, the buildings also cost you more. So for example, if you build like manpower buildings, they cost you money. With low crown power, they cost you a lot more money. And you also get very small support in your parliament, which is always like half of your crown power. So this is one of the reasons why you want the crown power to be up, because if it's below 25, it has devastating effects on your country. The other thing is why you want to also bring the nobles' influence down is that if some estate's power is above 25%, then it gives you a lot of negative maximum tax for that estate, as they have like 25% more power than that, 25% that they want to have, at minimum, of course. They will get half of that additional power. So, they have like 26% additional power on top of the 25 minimum that they really want. And they get half of that, so 13% reduced maximum tax. And that is actually a lot. And on top of that, which is also really bad, is that because they are so much above their expected power, the monthly progress towards aristocracy, which is actually their society value basically, goes up by 0.08 with this 26% being above the expected value. And that is very bad because the aristocracy is actually part of the reason why they have so much influence, so much power. So it's basically a snowball system where the estates, if they are super powerful, they're going to build buildings, increase their own population, and then also give, you have to give them privileges to keep them loyal and so on. You cannot tax them as much, so they can build even more buildings. And you really need to stop that scaling of your estates and scale your crown power yourself. And the first thing you want to do is, in most nations at the start, you can actually add another reform, like crown reform. What you want to do is to, most of the cases, if you have very low crown land, you want to choose the autocracy to give you another 10% crown power on the cost of 0.1 towards aristocracy, but we will reduce the influence of aristocracy in the process. The crown power is more important because it gives you an immediate effect, whereas the aristocracy in my country, for example, you can see it's already at 60 and the equilibrium is only 42. So with the additional 0.1, it will be at 52 equilibrium, so still below the current thing. But the crown power actually is really important over here, so I'm going to accept that. And on top of that, I'm also going to accept feudal nobility because that gives the nobles estate satisfaction equilibrium, which will help out with revoking privileges later. Next thing is your cabinet. Now, in the beginning of the game, you probably want to stabilize your country and strengthen your government or something, but especially stabilized country for the stability investment is a really strong one in the early game, but also throughout the entire game. So I would really recommend you to start with stabilizing country also, because more stability makes it possible to revoke more privileges faster later. For the other one, I would recommend you to do like the control one in probably one of your other areas basically. If you have a look on the control in your capital, for example, I think I will do it because there's one location that has very low control as well. So there we go. And now the interesting thing is, who are you going to appoint as a cabinet member? Funnily enough, actually, there is no nobility character available right now, but yeah, that is actually a thing that you really want to keep an eye out of. So you really don't want any nobility, any character of your nobility getting into any positions of power. Meaning no noble characters in your court, in your cabinet. No nobles character leading your armies or, explorers, whatever you want to do. So basically, every time you assign a character, you don't want to have any nobles running that. And in my case, I don't have any nobles right now, so I'm just going to choose the best ones. In this case, this one for the stability, because it's a military one. And for the control thing, I'll take the best administrative advisor. So I'm just going to give it out to the burger characters over here. The best thing that could happen would be if you had a crown character to assign to these seats. Most normal smaller countries also don't have that many crown characters in the beginning of the game, such as I don't have some in Tyrol as well. Now what you want to do is you want to set this up to the future. So for example, what you want right now, you would want your ruler, in this case the Countess Margaret, to get children basically. And then you want to marry those children to slowly create a bigger dynasty of yours that you can then use the characters of as characters in your court, in your cabinet, in your armies and so on. But that's of course a long-term goal. For now, I've done everything I could. The next interesting thing will be when the next parliament starts. Okay, so first of all, you can see that the reforms are fully implemented now, which already gives me 18% crown power, quite nice, and also reduced the nobility's power by 1%, because of course there is like always 100% of power to distribute, and if I get more, then all the other states get less, of course. Now I've got an event where I can actually get 10 prestige on cost of burger estate satisfaction, or I can actually change the society values by 5 towards plutocracy instead of aristocracy. Now I already told you the equilibrium is at 52. That means that if I now choose that, it will go to 55, but it will then stay there because the equilibrium is still at like lower than that, 52, right? So that's why I will choose to get to plutocracy every time I want to, every time I can in these events, because you can see right now the nobles power is increased by 30% because of 60 aristocracy. And now, if I go to the values, the nobles power is only at 27.5% because of 55 impact of aristocracy. Which already, as you can see on the next month tick, gets rid of another 1% of nobles power and distributes that over all the other estates and my crown power, of course. And now it's time for the parliament. You can see the Landtag is available now. Yeah, and that's what I was talking about, that you want to wait for that to start. Now there are a few interesting options. So first of all, you could now actually bolster the government, which is a thing that gives you a temporary modifier for 10 years of bolstered crown authority of 20% additional crown authority. But this is a temporary modifier. I want to change the non-temporary modifiers first. At least those modifiers that I have available. If I don't have anything more available, then I can take the temporary modifier as well. But first of all, what I want to do is I want to change laws. And for that, I need the support of the parliament. And therefore, it is actually counterintuitive to choose a noble's request in the parliament right now. And I will do that because then I already have their support from the beginning of the parliament. So for example, I can take this one over here, increase ties to neighbors. And that already gives me more than 50%, 59% support in the parliament, because it's the combined support of the crown power and the nobles power. Now what I can do is I can ask for law changes, which costs me 50 support in the Landtag. Let's just go to the laws real quick to see what we want to change. So the most important thing that we want to change in the beginning of the game is the estate laws and the distribution of power. So you can see right now the traditional distribution of power is active, which it is in most nations at the beginning of the game. And that actually reduces the crown power and at least increases estate satisfaction a little bit, but also increases the progress towards decentralization. What I would rather like is favor the ruler, which decreases estate satisfaction, which is an annoying thing, but on the other hand, it increases the crown power by 20% and increases the maximum tax of all estates by 5%. Now, choosing this reform or this law instead of the traditional distribution means that the crown power will increase by 30% with just this one law change. If I want to do this right now, it would cost me 100 stability, which is a lot and would cost me a lot of money to bring back in terms of stability. And that's why I'm going to do it with the parliament. So I'm going to ask for law changes and then go to the distribution of power law and simply choose favor the ruler, which only costs me 50 support in the Landtag and no stability whatsoever. So let's just do that real quick. There we go. Now, of course, it won't be active immediately. It will take time to be active. Let's just have a look at that. You can see it will take time until 1st of October 1341 to be fully implemented. And at that point, I will gain the full bonuses of that reform, basically. But now the parliament is still active. So if I get the support above 50% again, I could ask for another law change. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do the nobles agenda because it's nothing too special. If they want a privilege, for example, I of course wouldn't do that. I would just wait for the next parliament then. But as they only want a little bit progress towards serfdom, I don't really care about that. And that gives me 33% support in parliament. So I'm going to do that real quick. And then I can do, funnily enough, the same thing again. So I'm getting a little bit lucky here. But I could also just do the clerics thing over here. But this would decrease the nobility's satisfaction. So I would only do that if there were no such effective thing of the nobility. So let me just do that thing again. There we go. And that brings me up to 62% support again, which means that I can ask for another law change. And there are actually 2 more laws that I want to change regarding the nobles' influence and the crown power, basically. Of course, I want to change a lot more laws in terms of the entire game, but just for this matter of decreasing the nobles' power, there are 2 more laws. And the first one would be the royal court customs, where currently the aristocratic court is enacted, and it will be enacted in most other nations as well in the beginning of the game. And yeah, that of course increases the monthly progress towards aristocracy, which I don't really want. The thing is, if I revoke that now, then the nobles' estate satisfaction will go down by 5 additional 5, and it's already only at 60, which is a problem to revoke privileges later. And that's why before I do that, I'm actually going to change the education of the masses over here into uneducated masses, because literacy doesn't really matter that much in the early game anyways. And yeah, I can just go for uneducated masses for the estate satisfaction equilibrium of nobles. And yeah, therefore then afterwards take it away from the nobles on the aristocratic court. So of course I'm going to go to the parliament again, ask for law changes, go to religious teachings and enact uneducated masses over here. And now you can see the parliament support is down to 20%, which means I will fail the parliament issue, but that literally doesn't matter because it costs me only 7 stability to do so, and I just changed 2 laws that would have cost me 200 stability to change. So a very good price of 7 stability for 2 law changes is why I did this entire thing with the parliament now. Okay, and now there is actually a daughter that is born, and yeah, you can already see what I mean. This is now a character of the Tyrolean crown, which means that, of course, she's a woman, so I'm not entirely sure if I could really use her in the cabinet and something, but I can, of course, marry her off to someone else, and he's going to move to my court and so on, but yeah, that basically means that if I use such a crown character, that increases my overall crown power. Okay, the next parliament is here, and what I'm going to do now, I want to change 1 more law, yes, but I also want to start revoking privileges, and therefore I will now try to actually take the temporary crown authority modifier for an additional 20% crown power. So I'm just going to choose that and hope that the nobles have some agendas that I can complete, and I can do it. You can see I don't have a navy anyway, so perfect. I'm getting 25 support from them from this one. And then also, yeah, I'm going to spend a little bit stability to get an additional 13% support, which already increases the parliament support to 51%. And I'm just going to prolong the law change because it's only loyalty satisfaction equilibrium, of course, for the next parliament, and keep the support right now until the end of the 180 days of the debate. And then I'll get the modifier Bold Start Crown Authority temporary for 10 years at least, which means, by the way, that if you do that every 2 parliament issues, then you have it basically permanently. Yeah, because I think that will help me to revoke the first privilege of the nobility actually. You're going to see in a second what I mean by that. There we go. This actually increased my crown authority now, and let's just see after the month take what impact that actually had. Yeah, you can see now we are at 29% crown power, and the nobility's power decreased to 41%, which is perfect, because that means revoking a privilege now only costs me 116 stability. And I can actually manage to do that. You would probably want to keep a little bit of money on your treasury to then bribe the estate afterwards, because this will be a huge hit of loyalty for them. But yeah, what I want to do now is I want to use my stability that I started to add up from the beginning of the game to now invest into revoking a nobility privilege. What I really want to revoke is privileges with 50% or more estate power gain, which is a huge impact actually for their crown power, for their power basically. But not exactly this one, even though it increases progress towards aristocracy, because it gives tax efficiency. So a pretty nice modifier. But there is another privilege, this one over here, that is perfect to revoke right now. Because the only thing that really gives you is noble levies and increased levy efficiency and so on, which is nice, but you can fight wars without it and win wars with good allies, for example, and mercenaries and so on. But what that also gives you, that privilege, it gives the nobility 50% estate power without giving them any satisfaction equilibrium, which is the perfect privilege that you don't want them to have. Okay, so, and on top of that, it also increases the progress towards aristocracy by 0.1. This is literally the perfect privilege to revoke right now, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to right click on it and revoke the privilege, which reduces the estate satisfaction by 25% and my stability by 116. But it is a price I want to pay, and you're going to see in a second why. We have 41% influence of the nobility right now, and without that, first of all, they are quite disloyal now, so I'm going to just bribe them once, although I probably want to wait for the month tick to reduce their influence first. So you can see now the nobility actually has only 38% power, whereas the crown got actually an additional 2% power of that reduced nobility power, so it's now at 31 crown power, almost the same now as the nobility has. And if I bribe them now, of course they should be loyal again. So let's just see. The rebels are still loading, but of course the equilibrium is like above 50. So yeah, you can see right now it basically is not active anymore. And what that also means, like the stability, for example, you can see it will get back to 0 very fast now. And if I want to revoke another privilege, ideally within the next 10 years, because after that the crown power modifier runs out, then it only costs me 100 stability now because of their reduced influence. And then I can take another 50% influence off them, and then it will get even cheaper to revoke the next one. It took me around 8 years to get to this point, but this is the point you want to be in, where you have a decent amount of crown power. You can see I'm even getting positive effects right now from my increased crown power above 25. And the nobility is not that strong anymore that you can't revoke anything from them. So you basically control the nobility and you increased your own power, which also dramatically increased my income, by the way, because I can first of all tax way more of the estates, but also I can get way more trade income. So for example, in the beginning of the game, it was at like 0.1, now it's 0.38. So a great increase in control, in taxation and in trade income. while also controlling the nobles estate. I know I went into detail a lot, but I think it is a very important thing to know for new players when they start the game, and therefore I wanted to make this very detailed, very step-by-step explanation on how to increase your crown power and decrease your nobility. Yeah, from now on it's basically easy going because you have positive effects from your crown power. Even without the temporary modifier, you would be at like 28% or something. And the nobility is down to 38%, and I can just revoke privileges for 100 stability. So if I were to continue this game, I would just wait until I have 100 or like 80, 90 stability again, and then revoke another privilege, which reduces their influence even further. And with that loop that you do basically just for the next 10 to 20 years, in the end they will have like 20% power and you have 40%. And this is literally all I wanted to talk about. I hope you enjoyed the video, and more importantly, I hope you learned the important thing that you need to do when you want to start playing EU5 tomorrow when it comes out. So yeah, this is all for this week. I hope you enjoyed it, and we are going to see, as always, on another Monday.